Hello there, fellow Star Wars nerds, and welcome to Unlimited Content, the podcast where two brothers talk about all of Star Wars film and TV in chronological order on the internet as an excuse to hang out more. We're your hosts, Sam and Jack, and this week we're talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And we are joined by our very first guest this week. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Sarah Ford, Sam's wife. I almost said husband.
Hey,
yeah, thanks for having me. I am super stoked to be here. I always love an excuse to make people listen to my opinions. So,
what else are
That's why she
podcasts
married
for?
me.
Yeah, right?
What else are marriage and podcasts for, if not that?
Honestly, yeah. My life goals to have everybody listen to me. I am an artist and a writer and a stay-at-home mom and a secretary, all wrapped into one.
She's a busy lady.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things. That's amazing.
But I penciled you guys in.
Yeah, and she has to put up with me on top of all that.
Which is a lot.
I know.
It can be a lot, Jack.
I know.
Jack
I grew
knows.
up with him. I'm aware.
I know.
You did.
Okay. All right. So
man.
yeah, today's the first movie, first guest and first
movie.
full-length film that we're talking about. Today we're talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
The Phantom Menace. I'm very excited about that.
Big things happening. Big movie. Big guest. Big brothers. We have big bills to pay.
Indeed,
Jack.
big bills.
Who is
That
our
was a good
big
transition you had.
who is our big sponsor? Who's paying our big bills?
All right. Our sponsor this week has given us quite a long ad read to do this time. So
So big ad read.
yeah. This week's sponsor is the new Holo film, This Is Sheev. Learn the true story of our beloved Emperor's rise to glory, from his humble beginnings as a selfless Naboo senator to the strong galactic leader we all know and love. Reviewers call it electrifying. Sponsored by the Imperial Ministry of Culture. That's all right.
This
All
is
right.
sheep. I love it. Good old sheep Palpatine.
Oh my gosh.
We love it. We love it. We love it.
Felt appropriate
Oh,
for
man.
today's.
It does.
It was nice that they had this particular sponsorship for this particular episode. We get to see the beginnings of Sheev Palpatine's rise to glory.
Yeah. It is, as of this recording, Sheev Palpatine's first ever entrance into Star Wars canon.
This is the
Exciting.
first time
So many
I've
firsts
ever
today.
heard.
Indeed.
I've never heard Palpatine's first name before.
It's
Sheev.
silly. It's
I
very
know,
silly.
I know.
It's
It's
objectively silly.
absurd.
All right, so I guess before we get into some of the... Well, first of all, we've got a ton of stuff to talk about this week, because Star Wars
do.
Celebration just ended.
It
So
did.
there was a million announcements. But before we get into that, Sarah, before we get started, do you want to talk a little bit about what your relationship is with Star Wars? Like, did you watch it growing up? Have you seen a lot? Or just, are you, what's your relationship with the galaxy far, far away?
Yeah, I grew up watching the original films, like, on repeat. Like, I would go to my aunt's house in the country, and I didn't have cable back in the day. So all they would ever have playing were, like, 5 different movies, and 3 of them were the original film. But I never paid attention to them, because, I don't know, every time I feel like I looked at the TV, it was just Luke running through the deserts of Tatooine, like, every single time, and I didn't get it. So I didn't really pay attention to those until the prequels came out, I guess, because I was like 4 or 5. So were you, Jack. We're the same age.
Indeed.
And I feel like I saw all of them in theater. I want to say I saw all of them in theater.
It's believable.
Even though I was teeny tiny for the first one. And
Yeah,
then
we would have been like 3, I think, for the first
I
one.
was 4, right? Came out in 99.
It came out like May of 99.
Yes, but May of 99.
So you would have been 3.
Oh.
Almost 4.
Well, we had it on VHS. It was like one of our first VHS
There you go.
Gotcha,
movies.
yeah.
Which was really annoying because then DVDs came out. And then we had the rest on DVD.
Yeah. All these cross-platform.
It's kind of like having a paperback book and then 2 hardcovers all in the same trilogy. It's annoying. But
yeah,
yeah.
no, I get that. That's
Except
a
you
great analogy.
Except you don't need different eyes to read the paperback versus hardback, but you need a different device to put back a TV.
Well,
Anyway, never mind.
semantics.
Ignore me.
Okay.
See, she puts up with so much.
I got what you were getting at. I understood your analogy.
Thanks, Jack. Someone here loves me.
But yeah, me and my sister were super obsessed with the prequels, I think. I don't know if it's because my sister had a crush on Hayden Christensen,
We all did.
which
Yeah. So
all
say
the
we
time
honestly.
call him Christian Haydenson, and Sam just looks at me, and I have dyslexia, so it's fine. But I have convinced myself many times that is his name.
Hey, the fact that you're talking
It
about it
sounds
all
just
makes
as
me
much
happy.
like a name as the other one. So.
It does.
Also, I feel like he could go by that, and it would be totally fine, because I also think of his face. But yeah, I'm assuming that's the reason we watch it all the time. That, and I was obsessed with all of Padme's costume dresses. Like, I wanted
Oh, excellent.
all of them. I still, anytime you're watching episode 2, I'm just watching it for the costumes and
For
literally nothing else.
I watch it for the sand.
I don't like sand. Yeah, but I'm pretty familiar. It was a big part of my childhood, but I was never, like, super obsessed with it. And I never really paid attention to it until I started dating this one.
Yes.
And then I think I rewatched all the prequels just to, like, refresh my brain so that I could hold a conversation about Star Wars with you.
She really loves me.
Yeah.
I am a lucky man.
It's 80% of what Sam talks about.
It really
is.
The other 20% is our daughter.
That's true.
That's it.
Cool. All right. Well, it's awesome.
Sweet.
All right. So I guess let's move on into what's going on in the world of Star Wars, which, oh boy,
So
man,
much.
there's a lot. Okay. So, as I said, this past weekend was Star Wars Celebration in Europe, in London. And we got a bunch of announcements. It was a very exciting time, and so I have a long list of it in our in our episode script just to make sure we don't miss anything. But yeah, I guess we'll just go through the highlights basically. So I think the biggest announcement was we got a surprise announcement of 3 new live action movies, and it's not a trilogy; it's 3 separate movies directed by 3 separate directors in 3 separate time periods of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. The first one is a new film directed by James Mangold, who you might know from Logan or Ford v Ferrari, or his next movie is going to be Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny, coming out later this year, which is ostensibly why he was at Star Wars Celebration, but also we now know the other reason why he was there.
Yeah, because didn't they drop
so
a
he's going
trailer?
to be directing.
Didn't they drop a trailer for the new Indiana Jones movie at Star Wars Celebration?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones gets the privilege of being like the one other thing they talk about at Star Wars Celebration other than Star Wars. Yeah. That or like Willow, which those are like the 3 IPs that Lucasfilm has. Basically, are Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Willow.
Yeah.
But yeah, James Mangold's movie. What we learned about it is that it's going to be set at the dawn of the Jedi, telling the tale of the first Jedi to wield the Force. So that sounds super cool.
That does sound really cool.
Yeah. So Mangold said, quote, he thought about a biblical epic like a 10 Commandments and the dawning of the Force. Where did the Force come from? When did we discover it? When did we know how to use it? And a story just started developing. End quote. And apparently it's going to be set 25,000 years prior to the original Star Wars. So this is this is real early in the timeline here.
So do you think Yoda will be in this one? Or
you know,
you might be though.
I'd be impressed.
I would.
Yeah, when 25,000 years old you are, look this good, you will not. You know. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens there.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of is have you seen The Legend of Korra?
Oh my god, I was just thinking exactly what you're about to say. Like
yeah.
the origin of the Avatar episode.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
Yes.
And I'm very excited for this Star Wars movie actually. Or show.
Yeah. Based on the expression on Sam's face, I don't think he knows what we're talking about.
I mean, I've watched like the first couple episodes of Legend of Korra, but I did not watch anything else. Oops.
Sure. Yeah, so yeah, Legend of Korra, for those who don't know, it was a sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender. They're both animated series on Nickelodeon, and they're kind of Star Wars-ish in that they're, you know, it's about like there's an evil empire and there's people with magic powers and there's spirituality and stuff, but yeah, it's about like,
and there's Dave Filoni.
You know, that's true. Dave Filoni got his start on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Amazing.
That's true. But yeah, there's an episode of The Legend of Korra that kind of goes, like, it's like a flashback that goes way back in time to the beginning of, you know, the first people who were able to bend the elements and how that, yeah. Anyway,
That's cool.
That's what that reminded me of. So I'm really interested to see what comes of this movie. And James Mangold's a great director, so I'm super excited to hear more about that.
Nice. Yeah, that is. I'm very excited about that as well. Yeah, I'm kind of like trying to wrap my head around a Star Wars biblical epic. Just sounds so much fun. So much fun. I have no words.
Yeah.
So I should probably stop talking.
No words.
But I have no words. I'm very excited.
I have no words for this podcast. It is exclusively words.
I know. Yay, audio.
I'm one of 2 co-hosts, and I cannot speak.
Yeah, I'm speechless. So I guess I'll move on to the next movie they announced. Kind of takes place after the Mandalorian. So it's supposed to. It's a Dave Filoni directed movie that will. What they said that it'll pull together the threads from the recent Disney Plus series. So it'll be Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett. Maybe if we get another something that takes place during this time frame, maybe something else like that. But it's going to pull together all those threads into kind of like the culmination. So it's going to be like the Avengers of the post Star Wars Episode 6 Disney Plus TV shows.
Yeah, that's what it's sounding like.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for that. Dave Filoni.
Indeed.
I love that he's the fact that Dave Filoni is getting to direct a live action Star Wars movie is such a cool, like, one of those things you never thought would happen.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, and I think it's well deserved.
Oh yeah.
I'm super excited for him and to see what this movie is, because like my guess is, I don't know this for sure, but ostensibly it'll involve like, you know, it'll take place, like you said, after the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and stuff, and Ahsoka, and so maybe it'll be a Thrawn show. Movie. Like, it'll be like a, you know, a facing off against Thrawn sort of thing.
Kind of.
I don't know. I'm really excited to see what.
Kind of like a Thranos kind of situation.
I'm canceling the podcast right
fair.
now.
Get what I deserve. Either that or a kind of a Rise of First Order sort of situation, because we're kind of getting hints of that in the current like Mando stuff of kind of like how the New Republic is. There's a reason it all kind of crumbled so fast in the sequel trilogy, and we're seeing why. Lots
of bureaucracy and people just, you know, sort of turning a blind eye to things and being like, we don't want to get into another war. Everything's great. We'll just, you know, And meanwhile, you know, the remaining Imperial remnants are not resting on their laurels.
Right.
So anyway, I'm super excited to see what that happens. And then the third movie they announced is going to be directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. I hope I pronounced that right. And she is a Pakistani filmmaker with a background in documentaries and animation, and she also directed a couple episodes of Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus. And she will be directing a film set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, with Daisy Ridley returning to play Rey, and it's going to be about her like rebuilding the Jedi Order, which is cool for a number of reasons. One, this will be the first Star Wars film directed by a woman, which is amazing.
Are you serious?
Wow. I think so. Like I looked to make sure, and yeah, I think there was at least one that was announced before. Like I think there was going to be a Star Wars Rogue Squadron, either movie or series, that was going to be directed by a woman, but I think that either got shelved or canceled, or it's like postponed or something.
Yeah, I think that might have gotten caught in the Gina Carano crossfire stuff, because I think it was supposed to be a Cara Dune.
Right, it was supposed to be like starring her.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
But, well, we're not really missing out much there.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's super cool that we're, you know, about time, you know, finally getting a film directed by a woman in the Star Wars universe. Definitely deserved.
Because I feel like 50% of like the live action TV shows right now, the episodes are directed by women. So we got
Bryce which Dallas is awesome.
Howard.
And Deborah Chow.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Deborah Chow was the showrunner on Obi-Wan, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So that's rad. And then it's also cool that like we're gonna get I mean I think we haven't talked much about the sequels, but I think it's pretty clear that Sam and I are a little lukewarm on the sequels, to put it lightly. And I think But I think that like Daisy Ridley's a great actor and Rey has a lot of potential as a character, and so I'm hopeful that like this movie gives Rey a chance to kind of come into her own a little more as a character, and we get to see more of that and kind of, I don't know. I'm hopeful that this will be a cool, fun movie.
Yeah, I agree. I really feel like what bummed me out the most about the sequel trilogy was how it felt like it had so much potential, and they just fumbled it so hard. And so to kind of I remember walking out of The Force Awakens being genuinely excited for the future of Star Wars, and then it was really episodes 8 and 9 that just like all the dominoes that were set up in The Force Awakens just seemed to be a lot of things seemed to be completely ignored. It just didn't feel like a cohesive story. It felt like three movies that were loosely tied together with the same cast of characters.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
So to see, I don't know, Star Wars is like definitely leaning more into the lore side of things and like how like that's important to the fans, and hoping that Daisy Ridley gets the treatment that she deserves from the Star Wars writers and directors and all that stuff, because I think Rey could have been a really good character, but the sequels did not do what could have been there justice.
Yeah, she had a lot of screen time to become a good character. And still there's potential.
Yeah.
I feel like she was never really given a super strong characterization. And I agree with the idea that like the sequels in general felt like they were like disconnected. Yeah, like I think The Last Jedi, if taken on its own without context, is a great movie, but in the context of a greater trilogy, it feels like the conclusion to something, and also it feels like it kind of takes things from The Force Awakens in a direction that's wildly different than most people expected it to go. And so people have mixed opinions about that movie for that reason, I think. And then The Rise of Skywalker was kind of like backtracking on a lot of things that The Last Jedi did, and it just kind of fumbled the ending, it feels like. So all that being said, I'm excited for this movie. There's the 3 movies that we got announced that are, I mean, who knows when these are coming out, but it's just it's exciting to hear about these things and to have like an actual solid understanding of what the kind of the cinematic future of Star Wars is going to be, because for a while it's been like after The Rise of Skywalker, it was like we have supposedly a Rian Johnson trilogy that was going to be made, and then that kind of fell through, and apparently they're not really working on that at the moment anymore. Taika Waititi is supposed to be directing a film, but he's still working on the script, I think. So there's been a lot of things that have kind of been thrown around and talked about, and then nothing has come of them, and I feel like this is the first time we've had like, these are the next movies that we're going to be making, these are going to be who's making them, and this is what it's going to be about. And so I'm excited to see what goes from here.
Yeah, as am I. We got a lot of news about television for Star Wars as well, out of
Indeed.
Star Wars Celebration. We got our first like real trailer for Ahsoka, which looks so good. We have we saw Hera in live action. We saw Sabine in live action. We saw Chopper. We saw Ezra in a hologram in live action. We got confirmed that Lars Mikkelsen is coming back to be Thrawn, which is
that's so exciting. I love it when they're able to take one of the voice actors and bring them into live action, because most of the time it just like it's not a good casting fit for live action a lot of the time, which is disappointing. But it makes sense. Like for me, I'm still like not 100% used to Ahsoka not being Ashley Eckstein.
That's definitely it throws me off.
I
think Rosario Dawson does. She does a great job.
They're doing a great job.
Like Rosario Dawson's great. She plays the character very well. It's just I'm just used to Ahsoka sounding like a certain thing, and Rosario Dawson's voice does not sound exactly the same as Ashley Eckstein's voice.
Yeah, it's a very different
voice. So
agreed. Yeah,
it's great. I'm just thrilled to have a live action Ahsoka. Just to get to have the same voice match the face, which I think up to this point we've only really had with Bo-Katan. I think so. I think Bo-Katan's really the
the only kind of crossover that we've had so far in terms of like voice and live action. But yeah, I think Lars Mikkelsen is a great choice for a number of reasons. One, I thought his performance as Thrawn in Rebels was great. I mean, I love his voice and his whole like the way he portrays Thrawn is amazing. And he's also an on-screen actor regularly, so like, you know, and I think his face is very like, it's very villainous. I don't want to be mean to Lars Mikkelsen.
He just has a very very stoic, gaunt kind of face, which like
with piercing eyes,
which lends itself well to playing villain. Like, he's an actor. He plays villains.
Exactly.
Here we are.
The only thing I can remember that I've seen him in other than this is he was in an episode of Sherlock. He was in one of the season finales of Sherlock. He was like an information broker kind of guy. I thought he did a really good job in that. But yeah, so I'm super excited to see Thrawn in live action, B, to see this continuation of the story of Rebels in live action, and also just to see all these characters in live action I've said before on this podcast, but like I love Rebels so much. I think it's probably my favorite Star Wars thing, is that series. I love those characters, and the fact that we got like such a well written, well thought out story with a set of really distinct, lovable characters who all loved each other, and it was, you know, it's very much like a family situation there, and it's just exciting to see all these characters. So yeah, and we have now seen every living member of the Ghost crew in live action now, because we saw Zeb in The Mandalorian a little while back, and now we've seen Hera, Hera looks great, by the way. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is playing Hera, and I think they nailed her look, which is awesome. Sabine looks great, played by Natasha Liu Bordizzo. She looks great, and I'm hopeful that maybe we'll see her in The Mandalorian at some point.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll see, like, because I think there's 2 episodes left.
There are 2 episodes left. It's gonna be a 2-part season finale.
It's too short,
kind of thing.
So Sabine, which is a character I love. We saw Ezra briefly. We saw Chopper in live action, which technically we've seen him in live action before. He was like in the background in Rogue One, I think, briefly. But we got a close up of everybody's favorite droid war criminal, Chopper. And Thrawn, and I'm so excited.
It's gonna be so good.
The show looks great.
Are they gonna paint Lars blue?
They are.
Good.
They gotta.
I assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. Be weird if Thrawn was not blue.
Paint Lars blue.
What do we think about the orange lightsabers? Did you notice that?
What?
So in the Ahsoka trailer, there are like 2 red lightsaber wielding opponents to Ahsoka and to Sabine, and their lightsabers had like a noticeable like hint of orange.
Oh, I guess I didn't notice that aspect.
Yeah, they're definitely more orangey. Cause,
are they like Diet Sith?
I don't know. And there was a thing that looked like the world between worlds, and like we kind of I think got a glimpse of something that looks like that, because like kind of like they're in a dark space, and there's just like white lines on the ceiling that look like the rings from the world between worlds and Rebels. And this is basically Rebels season 5, so I'm assuming we're going to see some of that. So
I don't know who these characters are. It's interesting because like I don't think they're Inquisitors, because I mean, the Empire's gone, so presumably there aren't any Inquisitors left, and presumably they're not just straight up Sith, because, you know, I mean, I guess there can't be Sith anymore technically, because anyway, well, I guess Palpatine is technically alive. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to see who those characters are. I noticed the male one was like, there's the scene of him walking down a hallway and like blocking blaster bolts with his lightsaber, and he moves very like kind of rigidly and mechanically, and it almost made me think like, is this guy like an android or something?
Ooh.
Like, I don't know. Maybe that's some wild speculation right there, but like, I don't know.
I'm here for it.
I'm interested to see. Yeah, I'm interested to see what's up with those characters. Yeah. Also, fun fact: those 2 red light or orange lightsaber wielding characters are. I don't remember what their first names are, but their last names are Skull and Hati, which are the names of the wolves in Norse mythology who like chase the sun and moon across the sky.
That's
which is kind of
my favorite fun fact.
Easter egg.
So that's the name of the characters, not the actors. The characters. Is that right?
Okay,
got it. I was like,
if it was the actors, that'd be a crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
Oh
no.
God.
Okay, but yeah. But I mean, we also there's a lot like the wolves appear prominently in Rebels. So I wonder if that is like.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I wonder.
Wolf.
Oh,
if
I did not make that connection. Why didn't I think of that?
Because I was going to make it for you. So there you go. I would have never like known.
We wouldn't have figured out that fun fact though.
Yeah. This is why we talk about these.
Dave Filoni and his wolves.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah. So I wonder if those are the Loth wolves from the end, like Rebel season 4. Mayhaps.
Yeah, like evil Loth wolves turned into humans.
You would go Doom or something.
Doom. Yeah. Doom. Yeah. Doom.
Yeah. So I said. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Sure.
Great. Cool. There's no recording. You'll never know. I'm
super excited to basically get Rebels season 5, like you said, in live action. So excited for this show. And also Kevin Kiner, who did the music for Clone Wars and Rebels, is coming back to do the score for this.
Wonderful.
Which I believe this is the first live action thing he's gotten to score. So that's
I love
cool.
that. He also did Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So.
I just remembered there is another actor who played something in animated that carried their part over into live action. It's David Tennant with Hu Yang.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, yes, and also like we don't see David Tennant, but like
sure.
I get what that's true.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So that is another. That's the other thing that excited me about this trailer is we finally got to see and hear Hu Yang in live action. He looks great. And it's confirmed to be David Tennant, and I'm so glad that character's coming back. He's so cool. I love him.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, and then so that's Ahsoka. The movies and Ahsoka were I feel like were the two big announcements, but we've got a bunch of other smaller things to talk about too. So season 2 of Tales of the Jedi was announced.
Yeah. Did we hear what it's going to be about, or
I don't think they've said anything about like when it's set or what it's going to be about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think it's going to be about? Or what do you think it's going to be about?
I don't know. That's
because it's going to be an established character that we want to know more about.
Yeah. Assuming it's like follows kind of the same formula as the first season.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would really, really like to follow Kanan from after Order 66 up until Rebels. Because we see him in the season, the series premiere of The Bad Batch during the Order 66 scene. We see his master get gunned down and him escape. And then the next time we see him is season 1 of Rebels. So I would love maybe some stories there in the middle. Maybe if you got some more training somewhere else from somebody else. Who was that?
Yeah.
Or like
I'd love to see that too, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the other thing the other like canon time we've seen him is there was a book that takes place that's like a prequel to Rebels, where it's like about Kanan and Hera, and I think we see a little bit of like what happened before Rebels in that space, but like I would love to see like what was it like for him during the time between Rebels and Order 66. Yeah, like how did he survive? What happened? When did he decide to change his name? Things like that. Yeah, that'd be super cool. And there are so many other Jedi it could be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be cool if we had Plo Koon, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a whole lot to explore there, but I just love Plo.
Plo Koon's great. Sarah, is there any story that you would want more fleshing out in just like a quick little Tales of the Jedi 3-part?
Yeah, I want to know how Kanan and Hera found the time to have a baby. To even make a baby. This is my biggest plot hole in the animated. Because I have never like actually sat down to watch the show. I'm just like in the background while Sam was like binging this show during the pandemic or something. I don't remember when it was.
Yeah.
But I like got really absorbed in the end. And then they're like, oh, surprise, Kanan and Hera have a baby. And I was like, no. There was no time in this entire fight. And I am hung up on this plot hole. I know it's a kid's show, but It makes no sense.
They live on a ship together, to be fair.
But they have all these other room. It would be weird, and they're busy, and I don't know. I'm hung up on that. I want answers.
I don't know. Maybe they took a weekend trip.
I don't want that exact sort of story. I just want a romance novel about Kanan and Hera's relationship because
honestly,
I'm a big
I'd be
fan.
Down for that too.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I support this.
I would read that.
Yeah. Honestly, more Star Wars romance. I'd be down for that.
Please.
We need,
especially
we need
for all the wives of
stories.
the husbands and boyfriends that watch Star Wars. It would make it so much nicer. This is my plea for all the females out there.
They just released one
romance
kind of recently
in Star Wars.
They just released one. It was the Princess and the Scoundrel, I think is what it's called.
Is it a book?
It's a book. Yeah. So it's technically kind of like an action adventure romance novel of Han and Leia starting like immediately after the Battle of Endor. Like they're still on Endor when the book starts. So it's kind of their relationship starting from there. So
yeah, more of that, please.
There's another book I read a while back called Lost Stars. I think it's during like the Imperial era, and it's like a YA book about like two star-crossed lovers kind of situation. You know, like one of them, like they grew up together, and then one of them ends up working for the rebellion, and the other ends up working for the Empire.
They're like literally star-crossed.
You got it. That's true.
Love that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
okay.
More romance, please.
So,
all around. I would like to just see more. I don't
please.
care who it is, just anything.
We almost got some romance with in the Bad Batch with Tech and Wanda Sykes' character, but then they killed Tech.
They did.
So
yeah. Although I am still holding off for them winter soldiering Tech. Could happen.
I would love to see Tech back. But
we get one more season of Bad Batch, so
Yes, that was another one of the things that was announced.
I think we're gonna get a winter
Bad
soldier.
Batch is getting a third season, and it's going to be the last season, which is very sad.
Yep.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that they're like committing to an end instead of like letting it go on and then fizzle out. But like, I love the show. You know, I'm excited to see whatever the next animated thing is after. I hope they continue doing like Clone Wars quality animated stories on Disney Plus or something. Post Tales of the Jedi, post Bad Batch. You know.
You mean you didn't like Star Wars Resistance? What?
I haven't watched much of Star Wars Resistance, to be honest.
We'll get there.
I watched the first couple episodes and it didn't really hook me.
Yeah.
But we'll get there in 9 years or whatever.
Yeah. Who knows? Oh man.
Okay, so let's see. Other things. Season 2 of Star Wars Visions was announced.
Yes. Which
is super cool. And they showed a trailer with a lot of really beautiful stuff in it. Most exciting for me is Aardman, the creators of Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep and Chicken Run. They are making a short for Star Wars Visions, which is super exciting.
I am so excited for Wallace and Gromit Star Wars. I hope Wallace and Gromit actually show up. That'd be the best.
A little mini cameo.
I mean, this is a non-canon kind of thing, like short story imagined in the world of Star Wars. And so, honestly, we could get Wallace and Gromit.
Just some,
or a moon made of cheese. Come on, it's right there.
I would love to see like Wallace as like a smuggler and Gromit as like a little droid or something.
Yes.
Little robo dog.
Just Wallace in a Han Solo outfit.
Yeah.
and then a black and white Chewbacca. It'd be perfect.
Oh, that'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Put the little gun belt around him.
Yeah. See? There we go.
Yep.
Who would the penguin be?
Oh, Feathers McGraw?
I forgot that was his name.
That's his name.
Feathers McGraw.
Yeah, from The Wrong Trousers.
It was The Wrong Trousers, yeah.
Yeah, it's the second Wallace and Gromit short, and one of my favorite movies, genuinely. I love
it's
that.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chase scene at the end, it's amazing.
On the model train inside their
the model
house.
Trains.
Yes.
Yeah, so
incredible.
much tension. It's so exciting. Obviously, the Wrong Trousers themselves would be Maul's new legs. His spider legs.
Oh my gosh.
Those are the Wrong Trousers.
I need this alternate universe Star Wars now.
Yes.
I need Aardman to reanimate all of Star Wars, please. in like a kind of comedic parody form of Star Wars that's just all British humor and weird
just
contraptions.
Claymation.
Yeah, it's it's basically just British Robot Chicken, but for kids.
Exactly.
This is what we need.
Yeah, so Star Wars Vision Season 2. Exciting. I still need to watch most of Star Wars Vision Season 1, to be honest.
Same.
I've seen a couple episodes of Visions, but not most of them. They look great, so... Yeah.
Visually appealing, it didn't catch my attention, but I will rewatch them.
Yeah. Alright, Andor is currently filming Season 2. I think they showed a little bit of footage from it, like behind closed doors kind of thing. There's nothing online about it. But
I mean, there's cell phone video that I've seen.
I'm sure there is. But yeah, Andor is they're working hard on getting it out quickly, getting the second half of this quickly. Probably just to continue the momentum of like this super successful show that was like runaway successful. I think even more than Disney expected.
Oh yeah. Hey, I would wait as long as it needs for it to be perfect, because Andor Season 1 was the best thing of Star Wars live action I've seen since Revenge of the Sith.
Wow.
High praise. Them's fighting words, but also I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
like,
do you
it is very good.
I
really like Rogue One, but this is kind of related to that. So
it is. Yeah, it's a Rogue One prequel. Yeah. I love Rogue One.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, I agree that Andor is amazing, and I would wait as long as we needed to, but I'm also glad that it's coming sooner rather than later.
Indeed.
Because it's very good. It's also, they said this is the second half of Andor, so this is going to be the end of Andor, and presumably it'll, like, lead up to, just prior to the events of Rogue One.
Yeah. I believe I read somewhere that it's going to be, they're going to be basically, they're breaking up the season into 3 episode arcs, and each arc takes place, is like a year. And so we'll have an event like that 3 episode arc, and then a year elapses.
Passes.
And then and then another 3 episodes, and then it basically the finale of Andor will end right where Rogue One picks up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's gonna be kind of like.
Man, I'm excited for us to. I mean, honestly, I'll probably rewatch Rogue One again before we get to it on the podcast, because it's going to be 800 years from now when we get to that, and I love that movie.
We have the entire Clone Wars to get through before we get there. Yeah, and all of Rebels.
That's true.
Because Rebels, so all of Rebels.
Is all of Rebels prior to Andor?
Other than the epilogue at the end.
I guess.
I mean, not Andor, but not Andor Season 1, but it's all before Rogue One.
Yes, Rogue One, yeah.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah. So we'll probably be watching stuff concurrently.
Yeah. So Andor's filming Season 2. The Acolyte is an upcoming TV series that we got to learn a little more about this time at Star Wars Celebration. They've said that the Acolyte will tell a story from the perspective of the villains during the High Republic era, and that there'll be lots of Jedi in it, which is super cool. The High Republic era, by the way, is, if you don't know, is the era that takes place before the Clone Wars. So there was kind of the height of the Jedi. It's the earliest canon era that we have at the moment. So
it's in the same era. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say this is kind of like the canon replacement for the Old Republic era in Legends.
Mm-hmm. It's going to take place around the same time as the new High Republic books, right? Like Light of the Jedi and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Light of the Jedi is the first High Republic era book. I don't, and then there's a bunch of other ones in there. They've announced some new ones of that too. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the High Republic era, in books and comics and stuff. And I think this will be, the first thing in film or television that takes place during the High Republic, which is cool.
Indeed.
I think they said it's going to be near the end of the High Republic era, so it'll be on the kind of the tail end of that. So it'll be interesting to see if this is kind of the series is about the sort of not the fall of the Jedi, obviously, but the kind of their the beginning of their decline, I guess, from their glory days, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 other things we got. Jonas Suotamo, who you would know from the sequel trilogy. He was the kind of the double for Chewbacca, and then played Chewbacca permanently, like took on the role after Peter Mayhew died.
Mm-hmm.
So he's our current Chewbacca. He will be playing a Wookiee Jedi in the Acolyte, which is super exciting. It's super cool. I'm excited to see it. A Wookiee Jedi. That's just cool. And plus, cool. Jonas Suotamo is just like such a like. If you ever see any interviews with him or anything, he's just like a happy, positive guy. And so it's just cool to have him still around in the Star Wars universe, you know.
Yeah.
And then Carrie-Anne Moss will also be playing a Jedi, which is cool because she's always great in everything.
What else has she been in?
She was Trinity in The Matrix. That's kind of her most well-known role.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah. She was in... Cool. More recently, she was a major character in Horizon Forbidden West, the video game.
Sweet.
Yeah. She was in... She was in Jessica Jones. Yeah, she plays like a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
In Jessica Jones, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Carrie-Anne Moss.
That's cool.
She's gonna be a Jedi, so that's cool. And the Acolyte. Yeah. So we still don't know a ton about that, but it's. I'm excited.
I wonder if the Wookiee that Jonas Suotamo is going to be portraying is. So I started reading Light of the Jedi this last week, and there is a Wookiee Padawan in the book, and it takes place in the same era.
Oh, cool.
I wonder if that's the same character.
Maybe, yeah. That is. It's a good question.
I'm only like
I know
a quarter of the way through the book, but who knows?
Yeah, that's further than I am. I have not started yet,
Got it.
even though I bought it before you. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I have a time crunch with the audiobook from the library, so. Gotta do what I gotta do.
Gotcha.
The library tells you when you read, and
it's
you
like,
read.
You have 3 weeks or else.
Yeah. See, my problem is I just collect books and then they sit and I don't read them. You know?
I'm going to read this. I'm going to get to it, and then it sits there for 4 years, and then I finally pick it up. So I do read them. It's just I have more of them.
That's the way.
And I actually
that's
read
the way I am with video games. Yeah, it's like I wish I was like that with books, in that I actually read things eventually, which technically I still could eventually read all the books I bought.
Yeah,
I
mean, they're not going anywhere.
But true. But yeah, just like with video games, that's kind of how I am. Is I collect a lot of video games and buy up a lot of things, and then I eventually do get around to playing them all. It's just I bounce between a lot of different games.
There's like too many fun things to choose from.
Exactly. We live in an era of unlimited content, you could say.
Hey.
What's that thing called? Like when you're afraid of making choices because you have too many choices. There's a word for that.
Analysis paralysis.
Decision paralysis.
That sure. I don't know if that was like the official name, but
decision paralysis. I think is.
It's official to us.
Feels right.
You both said it with a lot of confidence, so I'm going to choose to believe you.
We had no paralysis about that decision.
Cool.
Okay. Boo! I have to live with this 24/7.
Yeah.
It's only increased since he's become
it's
a dad.
Your turn now.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of us.
Anyway.
Okay, so another show that was talked about was Skeleton Crew, which we haven't really known a lot about up until now, I don't think. But they did tell us a little bit more about it, and we kind of were introduced to more of the cast. So it was described as similar to the tone of 80s Amblin movies. So, you know, thinking like E.T. and Goonies and things like that. It's going to star Jude Law as some sort of Force user, maybe a Jedi, alongside a bunch of kids. The main cast is mostly kids.
Love that.
They described it as like, it's going to be like a bunch of like, so it's not going to be like a kids show, but it's going to be like, you know, a show for everybody that happens to star a bunch of kids, you know. And it'll be like about, the way that they described it, I think, was like it's going to be about a group of kids who are kind of whisked off on an adventure. So we'll start kind of from the ground level of like the perspective of just kind of these average kids growing up in the galaxy somewhere, and then they'll get to go on a big adventure. So I'm excited to see what becomes of that.
It's like a less traumatic version of Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah. I was thinking this sounds like Star Wars Stranger Things.
Oh yeah. That's definitely another good point of reference, I would think. Yeah.
I liked mine better.
Yeah, Stranger Things definitely also very. Stranger Things definly very Amblin.
Is Jude Law's character going to be like in charge of the kids? Is he going to be running like a Jedi daycare in this? Because I would watch the heck out of that.
I don't know. maybe you should be writing this show.
Star Wars is usually just begrudging dad figures hauling kids around. There's a lot of
So it
Star
could be
Wars.
Jude Law with an entire daycare worth of kids.
There's
I'm just
a lot of
saying.
that.
He could play a grumpy old man.
True.
Probably could.
Yeah. Jude Law's good at most things, and I think Grumpy Old Man is definitely something you could pull off.
Yeah.
He also doesn't age at all.
True.
Hardly.
He's one of those actors.
He really is. He's beautiful. I'm sorry.
It's alright.
He's a beautiful man.
You're like,
I'm not.
yes, he is.
I'm not threatened.
Have you seen Gattaca? It's a good movie.
I've seen Gattaca.
I've heard of it.
It's a good movie.
I've heard
Is
of
it
a
Jude
lot of
Law's in
things.
that movie?
Yeah. He's one of the two main guys.
Okay. I watched that movie in like 9th grade before I knew who Jude Law was. So it's one of those like movies that like you watch it like when you're a kid and you go back and like, oh, that was that guy.
It's that person. Yeah.
I'm having that right now.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah. Anyway, Gattaca, watch it. It's good and it's sad and it's good. Anyway,
It's a good
I
description.
need to watch
And
Donnie
then-
Darko first. Because that sounds like the same thing.
I don't think
That was like the
Donnie Darko is
vibe
anything
in my
like
brain
Gattaca.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing about Skeleton Crew is they announced a list of the directors who are going to be directing the episodes. I don't think I recognized any of them except for the Daniels, who you might know as being the directors behind Everything Everywhere All at Once. They'll be directing an episode, which is super rad.
Nice.
It's an amazing movie. You know, I mean, it won Best Picture, so you probably knew that.
Yeah,
But
we need to watch it.
Yeah, it's on the watch list.
it's very good.
Can you stream it somewhere? Where can you stream it?
It might
I
still
think
be in
it's like-
theaters, right? Or are they doing both?
No.
now?
I think it's probably... Well, I don't know. Maybe they put it back in theaters because they won the Oscar. That's definitely possible. But I think it was, at least for a while, it was like exclusive to Showtime or something. Something like that.
So
anyway.
probably Hulu, because Hulu's got a Showtime thingy, right?
I
You have
think
to
you have
pay
to
for it.
buy a subscription.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like an
It's
extra
like-
thing.
Womp womp.
The other one. I forgot there's another one attached. Or they just bought another streaming
I don't know.
company. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the last bit of news that I was excited about from Celebration, among the 8,000 different things that we learned, was Return of the Jedi is coming back to theaters later this month for its 40th anniversary, which is cool. I'm hoping that... I don't think they've announced like where it's going to be, or like... Hopefully it'll get a pretty wide release and I'll be able to see it in theaters, because that's one of the ones I don't think I've ever seen theatrically, so that's exciting.
Yes.
And they announced it alongside a really rad-looking poster.
Oh my gosh, that poster's
I
so pretty.
I would buy that poster. I want a full size of that poster, and I want to frame it on my wall. It looks really nice. It looks very beautiful.
Yes. Such a pretty poster. I love it. With like it has like the Death Star kind of like throne room window in the background with Darth Vader imposing, Luke Skywalker kind of like in the middle, and a little tiny Emperor in the foreground, and then kind of like and then Endor
surrounded by the forests of Endor.
Yeah, it was a very very pretty poster.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want it. But yeah, that was Star Wars Celebration.
So many
speaking.
things.
We got 3 movies. We got Ahsoka. We got Tales of the Jedi. We got Star Wars Visions. We got The Bad Batch. We got Andor. We got The Acolyte. We got Skeleton Crew. We've got Return of the Jedi. Yeah, and then also the Star Wars video game, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, is coming out later this month. I'm very excited about. And if you're watching the live stream at all, every single microphone that they had a little logo on it advertising Jedi Survivor, and I was like, "Yep, that's they're really getting their money's worth out of this advertising scheme with this." Anyway, yes, I'm very excited about that game. They released a final trailer for it, I think yesterday, the day before, and it looks super great, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I feel like I saw footage of, this might have been from the trailer, but Cal Kestis throwing a stormtrooper into a TIE fighter while fighting him. Like that was
that sounds about right.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
Yes, so excited. Like, I loved the first game, but like based on the trailers that they've released so far for this one, it looks like they've improved on basically everything. Like the combat looks more fun. It looks like there's more like exciting cinematic set piece moments. It looks amazing, and I'm super excited. And you get to go to Coruscant, I think, which is super cool, because I don't think I've ever been to Coruscant in a definitely not a video game of this like scale and like kind of budget. you know?
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. Yeah.
Love
All right. So that was Star Wars Celebration, which was a whole lot of stuff. How about we talk about what else we've been watching / reading / playing / listening to, etc. this past week? Sam, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I already kind of hit into that, but I've been reading / listening to an audiobook of The Light of the Jedi, which is the first novel in the High Republic era. It's really good so far. I mean, it's kind of like it feels. I'm like reading through it, and like a lot of the story kind of feels really predictable, and then I realize I'm only like 20% into the book. So like, there's like a lot of like, I'm still kind of like in the opening portion of the story. But it kind of takes place at like the height of the Republic and the height of the Jedi, and just like Jedi like having powers that like seem like bonkers compared to like what we see even in the prequels. Like there's like Jedi like when they commune with the Force can like levitate because they're just like so in touch with the Force, or like they can use the Force to like link telepathically like other Jedi, like and basically kind of just like having like a
they can Skype each other.
It's like a radio network through the Force where they can all like they're all kind of like walking into each other, but like
cool.
So they're the story kind of opens like there's like some sort of big system-wide natural disaster happening, and the Jedi kind of swoop in to help, and yeah, they use the Force to kind of communicate across different ships and across the planets and all that kind of stuff. So everyone kind of like keep tabs on each other all at once. So it's pretty nuts.
That's cool.
I'm excited to see where it goes, what happens, and all that stuff. And evidently, there's a lot of these books out already. Like I think. I don't know how many.
There's been like multiple like stages of the story. So we've gotten through like arc 1, and which is what this is in, and then arc 2, and then I think they just announced a bunch of stuff for like the third arc.
Yeah.
Of the High Republic at Celebration.
I like didn't realize that there were like more than like 1 or 2 of these books. So like I looked it up on like my like library app, and there's like I saw like the 8th one in the series. I'm like, what? I didn't know there were more than 3.
Yeah,
so.
Which like. Yeah, and it's I was kind of the same way because I didn't realize how many they'd released so far, because like it honestly hasn't been that long since they started the High Republic. They just have been releasing everything at a pretty fast clip, you know.
So that's exciting, but that's really all I've been doing other than other work, and it's been Easter, and I've just been vegging, so it's been nice. So that's all I've really been doing.
Well, Sarah, do we want to talk about do you want to go? Sarah, do you want to talk about what you've been reading, watching?
Yeah, I've been very slowly reading Homer's Odyssey, but it's translated. It's the only Odyssey that's been translated by a female, like, into the English language. So,
cool.
It's supposed to be a really interesting perspective on how she, like, just, like, translated a lot of, like, editing that went into the Odyssey over 2,000 years of Western civilization and like Christianity and like a lot of things that were like changed for the time translation and the sexist translation of a few words that has happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been reading that slowly, and I have been. What have I been doing? I'm always doing something. I've been gardening a lot. That's what I've been up to because the weather's been turning, and that's all I've been. I'm just a grandma, and I'm okay with that.
Well, rad. What are you growing? Is it just flowers?
Veggies
or is
and native wildflowers, and
Ooh.
Getting rid of invasive species.
Excellent. What veggies? I need to know. All the veggies.
A lot.
Right now you have green onions, shallots, potatoes, red onions.
And I have carrots, garlic.
Man, y'all gotta
tomatoes,
make a stew.
A couple
so
different kinds.
I'll come and visit you, and I'll have some stew from your garden. Yeah,
I think that's
it. Sounds good.
I think that's it. Just a veggie stew, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's all kind of like really starting to sprout now, and it's really exciting to watch. Sarah's been working her tail off, and it's like really really cool to see it all kind of come together.
Yeah, I started a lot of seeds. You're supposed to, like, start seeds indoors in, like, early winter, so that, like, by the time the last frost is coming around, you're ready to plant them all in the ground. So, I just did a deep dive, and that's all I've been doing now that the weather is warm.
Yeah, I've got a few friends who are have green thumbs and are really into their plants and stuff, and it's one of those things where, like, that sounds cool and fun, and I think it's cool that they do it, and I just feel like there's so much. I could, like, fall down a rabbit hole of doing research and figuring out what's the best way to do this, what's the correct way to do this, and I would just never do anything because I'd be like,
I have to do it right.
Agonizing. I would have analysis paralysis.
There it is.
There it is.
Buzzword of the podcast episode.
This episode is brought to you by the phrase analysis paralysis.
Oh man.
And the letter P.
Well, Jack, what have you been reading?
I've not been reading.
Wow.
I like I said, I bought Light of the Jedi at an airport a few weeks ago,
it was an airport buy.
I've like had it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It was cool. I was at a SFO, the San Francisco airport, and they have a little bookstore there that was like, it was honestly a nice little bookstore, and they had like, it wasn't your typical, like, you know how a lot of airport bookstores feel very sort of corporate, and it's just like, we put stuff up, and it's it's like based on algorithms probably,
and like bestsellers,
yeah. This felt more like a curated place, and there were like, areas on the shelves that were like, here's books that our employees recommend, and with like the little notes and stuff on it. I
love those. Those are so fun.
Yeah, and there was a section that was just, they had a little Star Wars section of all Star Wars books and stuff, and one of them was Light of the Jedi, and it was recommended by one of the employees, and when I bought it, when I bought it, checked out, and left, and the employee who checked me out said, "May the Force be with you." I was like, oh, "Thank you, you too." Yeah, so excited to do that, to read that. Unfortunately, I also have a crippling half-price books addiction that I just.
So does Sam.
Dude,
half-price books is my happy place
for a while.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I also bought, like, see, this section is going to turn into me just talking about what books I've bought and not what books I've read.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
But there's a graphic novel that's been on my to-read list for a while that I found the other day at Half Price Books for cheap. It's called Squire, and it's like a kind of like a Middle Eastern inspired, like, action epic fantasy sort of situation, kind of the like young adult spin on it. Anyway, it looks really good. It's got good reviews, and it's got beautiful art, and I'm excited to dive in at some point. See, the thing about comics is that I can more easily, like, sit down and read through that in one or two sittings.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm better at reading comics than I am at reading, like, novels. So
sure.
Hey, I love a good graphic novel.
Yes. Another thing that I have too many of that I need to read through. I've owned Watchmen for like a year now and haven't read it.
Dude, Watchmen is so good.
Oh, you've actually read it? I thought you have also just had it.
No, I read
around.
it. I read it in high school. I borrowed my buddies in high school, and I like never had a copy of my own. And then like I think I checked out from the library in college, so I've read it like 3 or 4 times since high school. Oh. It's really good. It's one of my favorites.
Right. Well, that's books. So the main thing that I did this past week is I watched a couple movies. I watched 2 different video game movies, 2 very different video game movies. The first one is Tetris, which is a movie that came out on Apple TV Plus recently. And it is not a movie based on Tetris, sadly.
That's what I thought it was immediately.
Yeah. It is a movie that is a dramatization of the actual true story behind the fight for distribution rights of Tetris. And it's honestly really interesting. Like, this is a story that I was familiar with from before, because I've like watched some YouTube videos about it. There's a YouTube channel called The Gaming Historian, who made a really good documentary about the history of Tetris. But basically, it's interesting because, like, it was made by one guy in his free time. He's like this programmer, but he's from Russia, and this was during the Soviet Union, and he worked for the government, and so like anything he made didn't really belong to him, and so it was like, he made this just for fun, just for the joy of it, and it ended up like being in the clutches of the Soviet government, and they like it's kind of about like all the sort of weirdness and complexities of them trying to like of them selling the rights, and of like different sort of parties within the Soviet Union being like, well, if we start selling things, then that's a slippery slope to turning into capitalism. And so, and this is like, it's near kind of the end of the Soviet era is when this takes place, and it's really interesting kind of look into like the sort of politics of things through the lens of this video game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Anyway, yeah, it's a really good movie. It was very well done. And I looked up like an article afterwards of like, what parts of this were true and what parts weren't, and it was like basically everything that happened in the movie actually happened for real. Like there were some things that they like definitely dramatized about it or like abbreviated, and then there's there's a car chase at the end that didn't happen in real life, but like
other than like
it's very spruced up, and it's like it's also like really like funny, and it's a great kind of like comedy drama. So I highly recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. So that was super fun. And then the day after that, I went and saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie
Nice.
On opening day.
Was it good?
So I wrote out my thoughts on Letterboxd if anybody wants to check that out at some point. But essentially, my takeaway was, if you are above the age of 8 and don't care about Mario or Nintendo, then you probably won't enjoy it very much. But if you're a huge Nintendo nerd like I am, you will probably love it. It's the plot and the characters are all very sparse and one-dimensional. It's not going to win any awards, but like visually, it's really beautiful at times. And there's a few like really well choreographed action sequences and chase sequences. But beyond that, it's pretty sparse and sort of a whatever movie. But the fact that like it's just full of references to the games, and it's what makes me happy is like that they could have just been like, here's all the basic Mario stuff that everybody knows, and just referenced like the original Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong, and that's it. But like there are elements in this movie from every major Mario game, like from Donkey Kong through like Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch. There's like so many little references. There's so many little like musical motifs that they take directly from the games and work into the score. Honestly, like watching that movie for somebody who loves Mario or who loves Nintendo, it's like a game. Like getting to kind of sit down and just spot like how many of these things are Easter eggs. And every scene has at least a couple things in it that I could just be like, oh, I know that's from X game, or it was super fun. If that sounds like it's up your alley, I would say watch it. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and if you have little kids, I'm sure they will love it too. And
that sounds like
performances
so
were all good. Chris Pratt was fine. I thought he did a pretty good job. The weirdest thing was just like, it didn't seem like he landed on accent ever. There was like, I feel like 60% of the time it's just Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt, and then the other 40% of the time he's like trying to put on sort of a Brooklyn accent, Yeah. And all the other performances were good. Jack Black, especially as Bowser.
Oh my
excellent.
gosh, I have heard that Jack Black's performance was like the entire reason to go see the movie.
Yeah, he hams it up, and it's very much like, this is Jack Black having fun and committing to the role 100%, as he is wont to do.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely not like an amazing movie that I would like put on my list of favorite movies or anything,
Sure.
but it was just so fun and satisfying to get to go to this movie and feel like the people who made this movie were just as passionate about these games as I am.
Yeah.
That they were clearly like even if it's not like a narratively super exciting movie, it is still clearly made from a place of love and passion for these characters in this world. Yeah, so
nice.
That was really good.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so the Mario Bros. Movie was great. And then also, the other thing I watched this past week was, of course, the latest Mandalorian episode, which...
Oh, of course.
What a weird, amazing episode that was. So, this is an episode with Jack Black, Lizzo, and Christopher Lloyd all cameoing in major roles.
Mm-hmm.
Which, incredible. Which, by the way, this episode came out the same day that the Super Mario Bros. Movie came out, so I got double Jack Black that day. We got Jack Black as Bowser, and we got Jack Black as this weird leader of a planet, like, with a big beard, and anyway, he was delightful.
Married to Lizzo.
Married to Lizzo, and a member of the Imperial Rehabilitation Program.
Yeah. Man,
yeah.
That's a lot of things. And then we also got Christopher Lloyd as basically a security guy, like head of the...
Yeah, the head of security and Count Dooku sympathizer.
Yeah, which, man, this episode had everything. It had a bunch of random cameos from amazing people. It had basically the main plot of the episode was like a investigation, almost murder mystery thing, but it was about droids, and they got to go to a droid bar, and
it was what if Mandalorian was a cop show?
Yeah,
a space microbiologist. That was fun.
Yeah, there was a space microbiologist that we got to meet, and they like analyzed things. Anyway, they solved the mystery and found out that Christopher Lloyd's character was actually a Separatist sympathizer, and like he's a Dooku stan, basically.
A Separatist sympathizer in the era post Empire.
Yeah, which I mean, wow, impressive that you
power to you
hung on to things that long. So then, Mando and Bo-Katan get the key to the city, and and then they're sent off in their hyper. Which, by the way, they call it a hyperloop. They just call it the hyperloop.
It was just Elon Musk's thing.
Yeah. Except it probably works.
Elon Musk's thing does not exist right now. Right now, it's basically a subway, but for Teslas. That's what it is right now.
Yeah. The Elon Musk is really good at making things that are just worse versions of things that already exist.
At the Cybertruck.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That car has N64 graphics.
He totally
there
does.
are no rounded edges on that.
Nope.
Piece of metal.
and there's no crumple zones. People are gonna die in that.
So many people are gonna die.
Oh my god. Just spikes. Yeah.
So anyway, after the kind of main chunk of this episode, we finally get to what was ostensibly the point of them coming to this planet, which was them finding all of the Mandalorians that had left Bo-Katan and gone on to be mercenaries, that were like basically being the sort of unofficial standing army of security for this planet. And Bo-Katan goes and is like, hey, you guys want to join me and like retake Mandalore? And they're like, no, why would we? No, what? And then they're like, you don't even have the Darksaber. That guy is the Darksaber. And then Bo-Katan's like, yeah, well, I'll fight you. So
it was a great fight.
And so we get it. Yeah, it was honestly a great fight. Yeah, we got a cool Mandalorian on Mandalorian one-on-one fight with jetpacks and wrist things and punching, and it was super cool. And Bo-Katan wins, and then they're all like, oh, I guess we follow her now. And he's like, well, you don't even have the Darksaber. And then Mando is like, well, actually, she saved me and defeated the thing that defeated me when I had the Darksaber, so technically she does own the Darksaber. It was very like...
By the transitive property of the Darksaber.
Exactly. It was very like the Elder Wand in Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. It was like, yeah, I defeated Draco, who did what, like, it's like, so technically the wand is mine. But, so, but that was cool. So, by this very strange and amazing episode and all these weird events, we end up with Bo-Katan finally is once again the leader of all these Mandalorians, and she has the Darksaber, and I guess we're ready to go and retake Mandalore, or at least we're closer to being ready. Yeah.
What worries me is that just given the pattern of how Star Wars shows work is, at least in, like, Dave Filoni Star Wars shows, there's, like, towards the end of the season, you'll have a fun, goofy episode of something to contrast the episode that follows immediately after, which is, like, dark and sad or tragic or, like, something.
Yeah, they're gonna try and take back Mandalore, and then everybody's gonna die or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because in Bad Batch Season 2, we had, like, they were on Pabu, or whatever it was called, like that, like, idyllic island city that looked like it was straight out of Greece. And then immediately next episode, Tech dies.
Yeah,
like
it's
it's
the calm before the storm.
Yes,
yeah.
So I'm like, that was this episode. Oh no, oh no.
Yeah. So who knows what'll happen? I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm man, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm excited to see it. So and that's really all you can ask for, I guess.
Yep.
All right. Well, without further ado, I guess it's time to get into our main segment, where we are going to be talking about the first feature-length film in canon, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
He can see things before they happen.
He can help you.
The Force is unusually strong with him.
He was meant to help you.
Anakin! Tell him to take off!
Will I ever see you again?
What does your heart tell you?
Are you sure about this? Trusting our fate to a boy we hardly know?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I sense much fear in you.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Sam, where in the timeline does this take place?
This takes place 32 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Awesome. Well, so since usually what we do here is we'll like go through beat by beat and summarize the thing that we watched and talk about it. This, I think, for the movies, at least definitely the mainline saga movies, we can kind of assume that everybody's seen them and we don't have to go play by play. But what I am interested in is, Sarah, would you like to give us a summary of what happened in this episode, in this movie?
Yes.
Like,
so that you guys can laugh at me. That's what I told Tim. Because it's going to be real bad. But yeah, I would love to. It'll entertain everyone listening that knows everything way more than I do.
I mean, hey,
you know what?
That's why we brought you here.
We're glad to have you here regardless.
What did you call it?
The unexpert.
The unexpert, yeah.
Yeah, you're our first unexpert.
I love that.
Yeah.
You can introduce me as such.
All right. Lady unexpert.
Oh, man.
What happens in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace? Go. We watched it last night.
We watched it last night, and I'm still kind of like, I don't really know what's happening. Also, if you hear a cat yowling in the background, that is Resident Butthole, our cat, Gigi.
Resident Butthole? It's a great name.
Should I go feed the cat while you summarize?
Yeah, you should.
Okay, great.
I'll be able to Resident Butthole is the name of my new band.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'll just... We should wait.
Yeah.
And that's why we got a second cat, because she would do that all the time outside our door at night, just yowl the top of her lungs, and then we got another cat, and she stopped doing that, unless she's starving.
Is because do they yowl at each other now, or they
no? She just, I think, the other one just annoys Gigi so much she doesn't have time to yowl.
Food there. She had food.
Excellent.
Why was she? She probably just wants in.
She does. Okay. Too bad. We'll be back.
Okay. So, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Go.
Something about a trade tax federation? Trade federation?
Yep. Trade federation, that's a real thing.
I used to get so much anxiety as a kid watching, like, the scroll across the screen, because I could never read fast enough, and now I can read fast enough, and I still don't really know what's going on.
For this movie, that's understandable, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like I could tell you more about 2 or 3, but that's why I'm on 1. So, the Jedi Council sends 2 of their own to go negotiate, or just, like, survey a bunch of spaceships. Sam's laughing at me already. Oh god. What were they? It was just like a droid
This is your story,
thing. How have I already...
This is Sarah's version of
yeah. Word for word, you'll never need to watch the actual movie if you just listen to my summary. But it turns out that the Trade Federation is not so secretly bad and is being run by Palpatine in disguise as Darth Sidious.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
I almost said Darth Insidious, so we're doing great.
I mean, it's where it comes from.
And they are... Sidious tells his henchmen to, like, kill the Jedi, because they shouldn't be mixed up in their business. And then the whole movie is kind of them being tracked down by Sidious's apprentice, Darth Maul. I think I'm on the right.
Right. No, that's all correct. You haven't said anything false at the moment.
But they get shipwrecked, kind of. Something in their, like, flying ship leaving the Sidious planet. Was that a separate planet?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of.
Something goes wrong, they get stranded on Tatooine. The Jedi do, leaving that. And... I'm struggling. What happened? I mean, I just... Padme runs around, disguised as her own decoy. Queen Amidala, Keira Knightley, and Natalie Portman apparently looked the same when they were 12. There's a bunch of pod racing.
It's the most important part of the movie.
Yeah. And I didn't realize how wholesome young Anakin was. Like, as a kid, and now as an adult, I'm like, he's so sweet. Also, didn't you say that that actor got flack, like Jar Jar Binks, for...
Yeah.
And I'm like, people are
Jake
so
Lloyd got
mean, because he was
bullied,
so sweet, and I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I do want to talk for a second about young Anakin in this, because, like, I feel like the sort of the narrative that people, like, is kind of assumed about this movie is that Jake Lloyd is bad and that young Anakin is, like, a bad character, badly written. And in rewatching this, I was like, no, he's just, like, you know, acting in the way that, like, a smart, overconfident kid would.
Yeah.
You know, he's, you know, I think the way that he acts in this is, like, very much lines up with sort of, like, especially, like, Clone Wars era Anakin. You know, he's very sort of, like, you know, he's smart and good at things and he knows it and he's sure of himself. But he's also still, like, he's a sweet kid. He's a mama's boy and he wants to, you know, he talks in a way that's very, like, kind of confident, and I think maybe people aren't used to, like, kids talking quite that way. We're used to kids being portrayed as more, like, keeping to themselves or being, like, a little less well-spoken, but I think it makes sense the way that he's portrayed in this.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as a youth, someone who works with young people for a living, young Anakin Skywalker is exactly what I would expect a cocky little 9-year-old in space to act like. Like, exactly. Because I have those kids in my youth group. Like, he's just like the
I've
kid.
I've never won a pod racing race, but I will today.
He is like there's a kid in my youth group who's like, he's a star baseball player, and I'm like, oh, that's that kid. Got it. Cool.
Anakin's like, you want to see my droid I'm making? You want to see this pod racer I built? Did you know that, you know, he's very much like, he's an excited little kid who's just super into things and knows what he's into, and, like, yeah, it totally makes sense that he would act this way, and I think they did a great job with it.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that in the back of my mind while watching this. I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
This is fine.
There's nothing flack-worthy about his performance.
People are just mean.
And also, it kind of makes it sad, because, like, as a little kid, he's so sweet and, like, thoughtful, and, like, of his mom, and I guess his peers around him, and the juxtaposition of him being twisted into a evil, selfish, venge-ridden. I don't know.
It's almost like George Lucas actually knew what he was doing this whole time.
He did.
And people
he can
just...
tell a good story. What a thing.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so, young Annie and pod race. What happens next?
They win the pod race, which gets them money, and then also, somehow, Liam Neeson, I'm just going to call him Liam Neeson,
sure.
gets Anakin's freedom. in the pod race as well. And so he takes Anakin home with him to be trained. And then other things happen. Darth Maul catches up with them. There was like something as they were like leaving the planet finally. And then he like shows up on a motorcycle.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious that Darth Maul has no idea who this kid is, but just like his first instinct, like he's chasing down these kids, he wants to just truck Anakin. Like
he's going, I'm gonna kill this kid right now.
Yeah. Little did he know that if Anakin didn't drop, like
that's the end of that's the end of Star Wars.
The Empire would have never risen to power.
Yeah. No, it's honestly also first of all, yeah, I think it's hilarious that like his thought when he's like, I see a kid in front of me, I'm gonna run it over, like how some like it's like a vindictive person, like I'm gonna try and run over this bird.
Just
in the
hates
road.
everyone for no reason.
Yeah, and then also like before that, when he first gets on his bike and he's like driving towards the ship, he drops off a cliff like very suddenly, and I just thought it's very silly the way that happens. He's just like driving forward. He's like, phew! And we don't see him for like 3 seconds, and then we see him driving, and he's like, oh, he's okay. Okay.
It's a silly movie. We can say it's a silly movie. All Star Wars movies are silly movies.
But
some great ways.
It checks out for a movie
but...
made in '99. It was very wholesome '90s kid movie.
It's very
vibe.
much like a tail end of the '90s kind of movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Maul catches up with them and they fight and then they leave and then yeah.
And then what?
They just Queen Amidala, aka Natalie Portman, tries to keep people from dying on her home planet Naboo. Really can't tell you why they were dying. Something about the Tax Federation, probably.
Yeah.
But she is like, I don't want to sign this treaty. Blah! And then Palpatine like weasels his way into the Senate or whatever. Was it the Senate?
Yes, the Senate.
Well, he was already a senator,
but he was like the top dude or something. He has a name.
He becomes chancellor.
Yeah, they force out the chancellor, and then he basically automatically becomes the front runner to be the new chancellor.
Yeah, and then Queen Amidala kind of went off script and being like aggressive and asking for Jar Jar Binks, who is a huge part of this movie. I don't know how I missed that up to now. I've missed a lot. It's fine.
Yeah, Jar Jar's here.
It's
also.
late. It's
fine.
Yeah.
It's late. I'm so tired. But she makes a peace treaty with like Jar Jar Binks' race of people that live in a lake under Naboo or a different planet. I don't know.
It's Naboo. Yeah, you're right.
And then that army kind of helps her lead this charge into taking the was it the Tax Federation?
Trade Federation, yeah.
That, yep. Takes them. My mind just stopped. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, basically the rest.
I'm so tired.
The rest of the movie is just battle. So it's just battle and the good guys win. That's the movie.
And well, the sad part is that Liam Neeson gets killed and Obi-Wan becomes the master of Anakin.
Indeed.
By kind of forcing Yoda to make him the master of Anakin.
Yeah.
Rip Liam Neeson.
We see an aggressive Obi-Wan at the end of this movie, which is kind of cool to see, which we don't see a lot in the rest of the movies because he's very much like by the book, but it's kind of like the one time we see him like really like his anger and he's like, no, I'm flipping doing this. But yeah, that's the movie.
Yeah,
thanks, Sarah. that was it.
Yeah, honestly, you don't need to watch the movie now. We've got it.
That's it. No one ever needs to watch
it.
any other Star Wars movie ever again. That's all you need to know from the entire
podcast
universe.
Over.
And
is my explanation. That misses like most of it.
See y'all next time
on limited content.
I mean, this is pretty unlimited.
Yeah, a buffet of content. All right. So do we want to? I guess we kind of Sam and I already talked about our history with the Phantom Menace a little bit, like at the beginning of on the first episode of the podcast. We talked about like we grew up with Phantom Menace and the prequels in general, but like. Yeah, we like this is a movie we watched a bajillion times growing up, and I think for me at least my opinion has changed several times on the Phantom Menace and on the prequels in general. But like, because I feel like there was growing up, I loved them. I didn't really understand the political stuff, but like I still enjoyed it because there was pod racing and lightsabers and And yeah, it's super cool and has great music, and there's so much to like about it, even if you don't get like the the Trade Federation and tax routes and whatever. Yeah, and then I feel like there was a period of time like when we were growing up during like middle school and high school where like it kind of became the norm. It kind of like in vogue to sort of hate on the prequels and be like, actually, those movies were bad and terrible, and we should just make fun of them. And then people like made fun of them to the point that like they started memeing about it, and then the memes became like affectionate when people realized like, actually, these movies are really fun and we like them a lot. It was almost like the memeing of these movies made people turn around on them and realize like, oh, actually, these are fun movies and we like them a lot. And now there's people who like, you know, grew up with them, who are now all grown up and like really appreciate them for what they are, like genuinely. So I think the prequels have kind of entered a renaissance a bit in recent years. And it also helps that I think the Clone Wars especially helps a lot. The fact that like that show does so much to flesh out the characters of the prequels and the events of the prequels in ways that the movies didn't get a chance to. Yeah. And I feel like this is the first time that I've watched The Phantom Menace since really watching all the way through the Clone Wars. Like, this is my first time like sitting down and really like paying attention to this movie and watching it since I like got into Clone Wars. And I think that's really affected kind of my my perception of these characters in this world, and like I know a lot more about the universe and little details and things that I hadn't noticed before or didn't pay attention to before or didn't like mean much to me. And I appreciate Qui-Gon Jinn as a character a lot more now. And
oh yeah, especially after watching like Tales of the Jedi, like his character arc, like, and just like what we know about Dooku. I feel like my appreciation of Qui-Gon Jinn as a character was vastly increased in this watch through.
Definitely, yeah. Qui-Gon's great, and honestly, it's interesting to me. Like in watching this movie, I was like thinking about it, and honestly, Qui-Gon is like the protagonist of this movie, which isn't like, I mean, obviously Anakin's the protagonist of the whole thing, and you know, but like, I mean, he's important, obviously. I don't know that there's one necessarily like one protagonist of this movie. There's a few different, like, you could argue that Anakin's the protagonist, you could argue that Padme is the protagonist of this movie, but I feel like Qui-Gon is the one who kind of is the most important character and drives a lot of what happens, and I feel like we spend the most time with Qui-Gon than any other character. Yeah. Which is kind of neat, just like to think about, like, that this is kind of Qui-Gon's movie, and then like Attack of the Clones and Return of the Jedi are both kind of Anakin and Obi-Wan's movie, kind of as a duo. Yeah. But we get to kind of see more like Qui-Gon's side of things in this first movie.
Yeah, I do like that. One thing I noticed in this watch through that I had never noticed before was the parallels between this movie and A New Hope. I never really noticed those before, because like people gave The Force Awakens a lot of crap for just being like a beat for beat redo of A New Hope, but The Phantom Menace was in a lot of ways, like especially like the third act of Phantom Menace, that was A New Hope. Like we had
honestly I was thinking about that too. Like there's a lot that they have in common, but like I feel like in some ways The Phantom Menace is a lesson in like how better to redo A New Hope.
Yes.
You know, because The Force Awakens feels much more like a straight like, let's do the original trilogy again, but like there's some different characters in it. And like let's change the way things look a little bit, whereas Phantom Menace is like largely follows the same structure as A New Hope, and you know, like you said, like follows some of the same beats. There's a big battle at the end. There's a lightsaber battle. That's also, there's like a space battle, and then they blow up a big thing in space that
with 2 photon torpedoes,
allows
and
them
it's a
to win the
Skywalker doing
day.
it.
yeah, exactly. You know, there's a lot that they have in common, but like I feel like one of the things that the prequels have to their advantage, and especially The Phantom Menace, is that it feels so new and different. They do so many new things with it. Like it's a very different feeling world. Like it still feels like Star Wars, but we get to see a lot of like, you know, this is pre-Imperial, and we get to see like Naboo is such a different planet than any of the other planets we see in the original trilogy. It's just so like beautiful and idyllic, and its sort of architecture and the way that its ships look and everything are so much more like elegant. And whereas in
it's down, yeah,
like the second one just looks exactly like they were filming at a private resort at Lake Como.
I mean, they were filming it at like at like a I've seen people like on Twitter and whatever like will just post pictures. Like I saw this one guy, he was a big Star Wars fan. His girlfriend wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, but like they went on this trip to Italy. Like, and he was like gonna propose, and he proposed in the wedding spot from Attack of the Clones, and I don't think she realized what it was until like she posted a side-by-side shot, and I hope they're still together because that's a good, thoughtful man, and he's
if you don't know what it is, Lake Como is beautiful. So.
Yeah, I mean, he took her to Lake Como. Come on,
that's a big deal.
That's incredible.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I feel like like you said, the Phantom Menace is very much in some ways like a retread, not a retread, like, but it follows a similar structure and it does a lot. It rhymes as George Lucas is wont to say. So and I thought that they did a really good job of like making it feel like kind of. Yeah, like rhyming with the structure of the original movie without making it feel like, oh, we're just doing the original movie again, Yeah,
I definitely agree. It was, I like what you said, that it's what The Force Awakens probably should have done, but didn't.
Yeah, I feel like, one of the things that The Force Awakens and I think the sequel trilogy in general did that they should have done differently is the fact that, like, they lean way too much on the original trilogy. I think maybe there was sort of a like they kind of oversteered away from the prequels in a sense, because I think the people who made Star Wars and like the executives at Disney and everybody were very like, okay, the prequels didn't get a great reception last time, maybe we should do things differently this time, maybe we should just stick to the original trilogy, the one that everybody loves. Let's try and do that again, basically.
But joke's on you, it would have been exactly the same in the 70s and 80s if they had the internet back then. like it's literally just like like you mentioned a couple episodes ago that like it's just the first time that like people were mean on the internet about a thing, and like that. So, and like it's uncharted territory. It's hard to kind of like, I don't know, like hindsight's 20/20, but like I don't know.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I just think that with the sequels, they kind of oversteered away from the prequels, and I think one of the things that the prequels does really well is that it introduces a lot of new locations and ideas, and like that flesh out the world and are really interesting and feel new, but that still feel authentically Star Wars. Whereas the sequels, I think, leaned a little bit too much into trying to replicate what the original trilogy did and kind of the tone and the look and feel of the original trilogy, which they did a great job at that, but like I think it was ultimately to its detriment because it felt like it wasn't really its own thing as much as say the prequels were, for all the prequels' faults, which there certainly are.
No, what are you talking about?
The prequels are perfect. I think that there's there's something to be said for trying new things, and I think that's and having kind of like a bold vision, and I think the fact that like the prequels in general had like such a like clearly going into it, George Lucas knew this is the story I want to tell over the course of these 3 movies, and it feels cohesive in that way.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, well, do we want to talk about what our favorite part of this movie?
We do.
Sam, what's your favorite part of the Phantom Menace? Which is going to be a toughie, I feel like, because there's so many great.
There's so lots of. I mean, I love pod racing scenes, obviously.
Yes.
And the final battle with Darth Maul and all that.
Which apparently Darth Maul has a fangirl club. Apparently a lot of women have had crushes on Darth Maul. And this is a thing
Really?
that I didn't know.
I mean, I don't blame
until a podcast I listened to recently just like brought that fact to my attention.
You listen to podcasts other than ours?
Yes.
What the heck, Sarah?
I know.
They make those?
How dare
I'm a
you?
very unsupportive wife.
Come
How
on.
dare
I thought we invented podcasts. Yeah. I thought that was our doing.
Yeah. 2 straight white men with a microphone. Never been done before.
Yeah, on the internet talking about Star Wars.
What's that?
What?
I know.
Unprecedented.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, one of the things I appreciated the most this time through was watching Palpatine and Padme, like in their kind of like their Senate scenes.
Yeah, that's very weird.
That was like him kind of like just being like the devil in her ear, kind of like scooching her in the direction that he needs her to be for his own machinations. I
definitely like. I noticed that this time, and I don't think I ever had before. Was like how clearly from the very beginning, like he's doing his sort of manipulation of things, and like I mean, now as an adult, it seems obvious, and especially like having watched these movies so many times now, and watched the Clone Wars and everything, like I know to kind of look for that, but I guess I never really thought about Palpatine as being kind of this like manipulative force until like episode 3. Like I think of episode 3 and kind of like the opera scene and like the sort of the more obvious moments where he's like clearly trying to push somebody in a certain direction. But this movie, like rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, no, he from the beginning he's like very clearly trying to weasel his way into a Senate seat, but doing it in a way that's very like he comes across as very logical and sort of empathetic and kind, and like, but he's clearly doing it for his own gains, and yeah,
right.
So that was cool.
Yeah, so I'd say that scene was probably my favorite new thing that I noticed this time around. But favorite scene overall has to be the lightsaber battle at the end. It's always my favorite.
I mean, yeah,
and John Williams going way harder than he needs to, and we love every ounce of it.
Those like heat shields, like that part, I didn't remember at all, and I was so nervous just watching them like wait to fight each other.
Yeah, and I love something I noticed about that moment that I hadn't before. I don't think was, or at least that I didn't remember noticing, was that like earlier in the movie, Qui-Gon talks about like Anakin. He can do things. He can. It seems like he has really quick reflexes, but it's because he can see things before they happen. And then in the part during that fight when the heat shields are up, right before the shields turn off, Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber, and so it's like he knew that it was about to happen, and then as soon as the shields come down, Qui-Gon and Maul like get right back into it. I thought that was just a really cool little moment of like, oh, they were using the Force just then, and I didn't even realize it. They were like, it's not just that they have really good reflexes, it's that they were like in tune with the Force and knew what was about to happen. They like could anticipate it. Like that was cool.
I liked another aside on the heat screen thing. Like after he gets Qui-Gon Jinn through the stomach, and then Obi-Wan's like waiting. I liked the little moment where he was like, he did like that young man in sports like move where you just start jumping back and forth. Like it was kind of interesting to see Obi-Wan as like this really youthful, impatient, like hothead that like Anakin turns into as his like apprentice. It was cool. I liked that little piece of acting from Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, he's just forced to just fume for a second because he can't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a cool moment. Sarah, what was your favorite part of this movie?
It's gonna have to be the costumes for me.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
But no, favorite moment. I don't know. I really liked seeing Obi-Wan as like the apprentice. Like just kind of, I don't know. Also, I just feel like everything in this movie, the whole of Star Wars would not exist if everyone listened to Obi-Wan in this movie. Everyone, including his master.
Qui-Gon's like, you're a much wiser man than I, Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan's like,
yeah,
then
and then
why
he
don't
tells
you
him
listen
to do something, and he's like, no. Like, I just feel like this kid's gonna be a mistake, and he's like, no, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. Well, let's train him anyway. Yeah. I don't know if I have, like, a favorite scene. the visuals of the ending fight scene were my favorite, but I also really liked the Anakin in the Naboo Starfighter. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Just like accidentally flying to where he needs to go and then just casually destroying the entire thing. Yeah, that's probably it for me.
Yeah, honestly, that was like something I noticed this time around that I guess I didn't pick up on as a kid was like there are a lot of moments where people where Anakin and Jar Jar both like accidentally do really good in combat. they're every time Jar Jar is in a fight, he like will trip over something and then accidentally take out like 7 droids, or like it's like it's just him stumbling through it, and like it's very like sort of silent film era comedy type. It's really funny, just like the he stumbles into being general and then also accidentally like wins like destroys a lot of these droids and like takes down some tanks by accident, and like it's just I thought that was cool. And then Anakin also does that when he like just is like, well, I guess we're flying
on the autopilot, like here we go.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
That's a good trick. Yeah. Now this is podcasting. Yeah. There was something else that you said, Sarah, that I wanted to comment on. I'm trying to remember.
Mostly about Obi-Wan. So was it about Obi-Wan? Or the costumes? Oh
yeah, actually, I'm curious. Did you have a favorite costume? Did you have a favorite Padme outfit?
I love the classic one that lights up, which Sam pointed out to me that there's a plug in the scene.
Oh, is there?
I did not notice.
That's the one where she has a dress that has like light bulbs in the bottom of the dress or whatever?
Yeah, where it's just like a quick scene where you see her just kind of, she's in the Naboo Palace, and she's staring out the window, she's staring off to the right, and you can see a black cable running along the floor off to the left.
Really? That's amazing.
Yes.
I didn't notice
that. Because I think when Mom and I watched the Industrial Light and Magic documentary on Disney Plus, I think they said like the ILM engineers literally said like, yeah, that was Christmas lights in that. It was literally just like...
So doubly, yeah, that might be one of my favorites now. But I think my sister had that Halloween costume like one year. She was
awesome.
Queen Amidala, and that was the dress. So I feel like for nostalgia's sake, probably that one, but also watching it back this time around, the one that she's like, it looks like a giant like silver kimono, and she has like very Japanese influenced hair and like a headdress. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's like towards the end.
I feel like that could. Oh no, actually, I do know which one you're talking about. Yeah,
they're on Coruscant. I think they're in Palpatine's office on Coruscant.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's probably my favorite, just because of the detail. And I noticed that because of course all I pay attention to is the costumes and the prequels, but I noticed that the first movie was just way more Japanese inspired in like art and dress than the second and third movies. So I just thought that was really cool to see how like they clearly started with a vision that then went a very different direction, but like both in very good ways. I don't know.
Yeah, Naboo's really interesting because it's like setting wise, it's clearly like Italy, basically.
Yeah,
but then like her dress is very Japanese, and like it's an interesting mix of cultures, you know.
Yeah. I also think it's cool that it's like Japanese because I feel like there's a lot of like traditional like warrior women that came from like samurai Japan that like actually were like these amazing like fighters and like leaders in their own families, and I feel like that was what Padme was. It was just like a great leader, a great female warrior leader that we didn't know she was until this movie.
Yeah. Let's see. So my favorite part.
You?
Yeah. But one thing I noticed this time that I didn't, I guess I hadn't thought about in a long time was like how funny this movie is sometimes. Like there are moments where like I guess like because this movie has like gotten such a reputation of being like, you know, sort of stilted and slow and having like, you know, kind of monotone line reads and stuff, and it, you know, people talking about taxation and trade routes and stuff. You know, it has this reputation, but like there are moments in this movie like there's some really funny lines. The first one is like when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are on the Trade Federation ship and they are like sneaking around and they see the droid army for the first time, and they're like, we gotta get down to the planet, or we gotta get back to the Chancellor or whatever, and Obi-Wan's like, well, you were right about one thing, the negotiations were swift. It's like, that was cute. And he kind of gives this little smirk. I'm like, yeah.
The negotiations were short.
Yeah. There was a few of those moments where it was just like, it's funnier than I remembered it being. There's some really great like one-liners in this movie. As far as like my favorite like moment in the movie, I mean, I think obviously the Duel of the Fates at the end like is incredible. I love that lightsaber fight. Amazing. I think I'm gonna go with, just for the sake of, since you already went with that, I'm gonna go with the pod racing scene. I think something I noticed about the pod race was that I didn't remember was that like most of the race there's no music and it's just sound effects. And the sound, they introduce some music near the end when it's like just Anakin and Sebulba, but like for the most part, it's just like all these crazy, weird, amazing sound effects, and it's like Ben Burtt just going ham the whole time with like all the different weird, crazy, interesting sounds that these pod racers make, like. There's sort of like weird, like like all these, and like the Doppler effect of them like going past the camera, and there's just so many interesting sounds where I'm like, I was like listening during that scene, and I was like, I don't think I've ever heard that sound anywhere else in my life. Like, so many interesting like little like tidbits, and it's such a fun sequence, and it's well choreographed and really like thrilling, and you really get that sense of speed, and also just like the fact that like, obviously it's very inspired by like Ben-Hur like chariot races and things like that. I think that this scene was like they've said it's pretty directly inspired by like the chariot race in Ben-Hur. But I mean, pod racers are basically chariots, because it's a thing being pulled by engines, and I love like how sort of like how different they all look, and how like clearly this is like really fragile, because they're all just like dangling by like wires, and they spin out of control so easily, and it's just a super cool
it's like
sequence.
Track racing meets chariot racing, basically.
Basically. Except even more dangerous. Yeah.
Do you remember playing as a kid Star Wars Pod Racer?
I remember it existing, and I probably played it a little bit, but I don't think I really played it that much. Okay. What I do remember is there was an arcade game that was there was Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, but as an arcade game, and it was like you sat in. Basically, it was designed to look like Anakin's pod racer, and the way that you steered was you like pulled the two things on either side, like in the movie, where you push them both forward to go forward. You push like only the left one forward to like turn right, and the other one, It was a cool like interface. I remember liking that.
That was so much fun. I think they had one at the main event in Louisville, I think.
Yes, that's probably where I played it. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. But I was watching the pod racing this time. I was taken back to playing Star Wars Pod Racer, because I remember like all the different because you could play as all of the different pod racers. In the game, and there were a couple different courses. It wasn't like an extensive game, but it was like a lot of fun. Like, because you just basically got to like do that one race, and then there were a couple other races. But it was like a small little CD-ROM game, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. I guess now let's talk about who was our MVP in this movie. Who is our do we think deserves MVP recognition for being particularly awesome in this story? What character? Sam, you want to go first?
Sure. Watching last night, my thought was Shmi Skywalker is the MVP of just like her, like the fact that she recognized the ability in her son, and was willing to let him go and live a better life, even if it meant like not being with him forever. Like,
you watched it differently.
The level of
oh my gosh, I was like, how did she just let her son walk away? Okay,
yeah,
great.
It's the first time I've actively watched the movie since being a parent. I've had it on the background, like, while doing laundry and stuff. But, like, I've never, like, sat down and just, like, watched it. And it was, like since becoming a parent. And yeah, that it hits different.
It's really just raises a lot more questions, I think. And it's a more emotional gut punch there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine that it takes just an extraordinary amount of, like, strength and humility to be able to be like, yeah, I don't want my son to leave, but, like, this is going to be better for him to go be on his own, or, you know, to kind of join this new life. And also the fact that, like, you know, she's clearly, like, not comfortable with him being in the pod race, but, like, wants to give him that chance because I think she knows how skilled he is, and kind of, you know, has that sort of belief in him in that sense, but also just the, like, when they're arguing about it over the dinner table, Anakin's like, you always say that the problem with this world is that nobody is kind to each other, or something like that. And I think she, like, sees that this is an opportunity for, not only for him to, like, do something that he loves, but also to you know, take advantage of an opportunity to help someone and to be kind. And I think, you know, she kind of saw that and was like, okay, I still don't like it, but you know, maybe this is the right thing for him to do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Shmi's amazing. Definitely.
Jack, what about you?
I mean, man, I love Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's such a great, like, there's this story that I think Dave Filoni tells about, like, about his sort of interpretation of the events of the Phantom Menace, and I think he's like talked about George Lucas, talked about this with George Lucas before, and kind of confirmed his theories about it. But the idea is that, like, the lightsaber battle at the end, the music track is called Duel of the Fates, and that's because they are literally fighting for the fate of Anakin in that moment, because it's like the thing that leads to Anakin's downfall is largely the fact that he doesn't get the father figure that he needs. That, like, if Qui-Gon had lived and trained him, then maybe, you know, he wouldn't have fallen to the dark side. But instead, like, Qui-Gon dies, and then Obi-Wan ends up essentially being the one to sort of raise him, and he's more of, like, a big brother type rather than, like, a father. And I don't know, I think it's cool to see Qui-Gon and his, like, how sure he is of, like, Anakin is he's the chosen one, and we need to train him to be a Jedi, and this is what we need to do. But, like, I think he was right, but the fact that he died kind of is what, like, you know, sent things in a bad direction in a way. Anyway, I just think Qui-Gon is a super underappreciated character, and I think like, in the Clone Wars, seeing him, like, the kind of series of episodes in season 6 where Qui-Gon basically, like, talks to Yoda through the Force and, like, teaches him to continue into the cosmic Force, like afterwards, and, like, be a Force ghost, basically. I think that kind of demonstrates how, like, wise and sort of in tune with things as a character Qui-Gon was, as a Jedi. He was, like, definitely among the wisest, because even, like, at this time when, like, I feel like even, like, Yoda didn't see some things coming, and, like, and Qui-Gon was, like, you know, it's established that he doesn't always follow the Jedi code to a T. Mm-hmm. And I think that is kind of indicative of his wisdom in this situation, because I think he knows that, like, not everything that the Jedi Order teaches right now, or the way that the Jedi Order is acting, is actually correct. That they've sort of lost their way in some ways, and Qui-Gon knows that, and he won't, like, say that explicitly, because, you know, presumably if he did that, they would, like, kick him out. But, like, you know, he's doing what he can within the system to kind of, regardless of what the council says, he continues to try and do what he believes is right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the, you know, that's his sort of drive through this movie, and I think it's cool that, like, I mean, this is obviously the most we ever see of Qui-Gon is this movie, and we get some more of him, and, like, you know, he shows up very briefly at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we get some, like, flashbacks of him in the Clone Wars, and we get the season 6 stuff as Force Ghost or half Ghost or whatever. But yeah, I like Qui-Gon. That was my long tangent about Qui-Gon and why I think he's great.
Yeah, we love Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I was just like, yep. agree.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah? Did you have a fave character, an MVP?
I keep going back and forth between Obi-Wan and Padme, because I like, and it's for the same reason, I just like how they both kind of begin to come into their own in this movie, and I didn't notice that until this time around watching, and I don't know, they're both very strong characters, and they're making the good decisions when faced with two decisions. I don't know where I was going with that thought.
No, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just like how they're like wise and kind of just uplift everyone around them with the decisions that they make. And I like how Obi-Wan steps in after Qui-Gon dies and just like fulfills that last wish, even though the whole council was against him. And I liked how Padme just came out of left field and what is his name? Sheev? Didn't like see it coming, and I don't know. It's a tie. Long story short.
Reasonable. Yep. Yeah. Padme, I think especially was, I also didn't notice kind of until this watch, like how strong of a character Padme is and how much she does, like, because I feel like, you know, as a kid, like most of the stuff that Padme does is like talking while in heavy makeup.
Yeah,
or, like,
you're not like listening to what
or something.
She's saying,
Yeah. And now that I actually know what's going on, and I can I'm paying attention to what she's doing. It's like she like the whole time is very, very committed to her people and to like, you know, trying to ensure that whatever happens, that like political corruption and trade disputes and whatever, that none of that gets in the way of her actually serving her people. And she goes to the point of like humbling herself before the Gungans and like bowing down to them, being like, we need your help.
Yeah, Boss Nass.
Yeah, Boss Nass. Just the fact that like she's a strong leader even from such a young age. She's like, I know what I need to do and what's important, and she's unwavering in that. That's cool.
Yeah, something I noticed about Padme's hair and like outfit in the like end of the movie when they're like storming the Federation, and she like kind of has like that butterfly looking hairstyle and like the red like coat and pants. I'm realizing now that that's just like what they put Leia in Obi-Wan. It was like almost the same exact hairstyle and like suit costume, just like a different color. I don't know. I thought that was a nice little.
I would have to look back at that to remember what that is, but yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that there was a lot of intentionality to make young Leia look a lot like Padme in the Obi-Wan show, so that makes sense.
I feel like Padme in this episode is where they got a lot of inspiration for little Leia.
For sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
All
right. I guess now it's time for it's time for us to go through our statistics. So main character kill count. So yeah, Maul gets 1 kill. Unfortunately, kills Qui-Gon.
Ew.
Obi-Wan gets 1 kill. Obi-Wan kills Maul. Well, or he thinks he does. So I guess, can we really count that? Because he never actually dies.
How does he not? I don't know how it works, so don't answer that question, because I'll figure it out eventually, but how does he not die?
It's spite. It's just he lives out of pure spite and hatred.
Yeah.
And also spider legs. He gets spider legs.
Do we count it? Oh gosh.
Yeah. I don't think we can. He doesn't die.
Ew.
He'll get it eventually. He'll get that kill eventually.
He will. I don't know. I think
yeah.
We should leave it up to the audience. They should like, if you think that Obi-Wan actually, like, if this should count as a kill in the kill count, let us know. Or if you don't think so, let us know.
See, here's the thing. There's a correct answer.
Fine.
Which is that he doesn't.
I believe that he strongly did die. So, you know what, Jack? He's dead.
We'll put up a poll.
He's not dead, though.
But he's dead. No, he's dead.
I don't know. Jack, talk me back. Sorry, babe.
Yep.
He's cut in half.
Yeah, and then he shows up.
He does.
Like a couple years later.
He comes back. He's got
his
spider
digestive
legs.
System? He doesn't have one. He'd
It's
be dead
Star
anyway.
Wars, Sarah. He doesn't need one.
It's the
He
Force.
just cyborgs his way.
He eats the Force. Kill counts. Also, I think we gotta count. I need to go back and count how many people were in there, but like, Anakin blows up that ship, and there's at least a few like of the like Trade Federation folks in there. It's not just droids,
Right?
Like, there's one room that's full of that has like a bunch of
he
actual
have the highest
beings.
kill count in this movie.
Anakin does.
I believe so.
Starting out strong.
Yeah, Anakin, way to go!
Yeah.
First appearance.
Should have seen it coming.
Already killing so many.
We should have seen
people.
this Darth Vader thing coming.
We really should have.
Yeah, so I gotta go back and like look at that one shot of like them in the, like before it blows up and see how many people are in there, and I'll add that to our kill count, and we'll report back next time, I guess.
Indeed.
About that. Wilhelm scream count.
We got our first one.
There was one. Yes.
Yeah, it was one of the pilots in the Naboo hangar, right?
Yeah, when they were all running to their ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them gets shot and goes, ah! Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Like
yeah,
that.
as soon as that happened, I was like, yes, first one.
I know.
We did it.
Yeah, I was that Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like there it is.
I see it. I understood that reference. All right, more Star Wars is better Star Wars. How does this film make the rest of Star Wars better?
I mean, it does because it's more Star Wars.
Yes.
But how does this make it better specifically? I mean, like, I think that quote applies mostly to the TV shows making the movies better.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yeah, in my thought.
But I think it's also like important to talk a little bit about like the level of influence that this movie had on not just the rest of Star Wars, but on like Hollywood as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was like, I mean, George Lucas for his whole career, like since the first Star Wars, has been at the forefront of like pushing technology forward and like, you know, developing. You know, he started Industrial Light and Magic. He developed new visual effects. He with Skywalker Sound developed the THX standard and went around to different movie theaters and was like, you need to. Your system needs to be certified according to our standards so that we make sure that, you know, everybody's having the correct experience, which, you know, that kind of level of standardization didn't exist before George Lucas was like, you don't get to see
that's crazy to
Return of
think
the
about.
Jedi or whatever before. Yeah, like just the level of like influence George Lucas as an individual has had over the progress of film and of technology is insane.
Yeah.
In addition to just cultural impact. And I think Phantom Menace in particular, I think was the first movie to ever be shot entirely digitally. Like he like this was really early on with digital cinema cameras, and there was like not like they had to like bespoke develop equipment for this, and like, you know, it was George Lucas like putting his own like his influence and his money into like trying to push towards digital because he knew that was like the future of things.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's that. Yeah, and then just the fact that like, you know, this one movie kind of establishes the beginning of the whole prequel era and establishes the tone and the setting and introduces so many things to the Star Wars canon about like, you know, this was the first time that we had seen anything prior to A New Hope, really.
Yeah. And,
you know, this is the first time we got to see like, this is what the Jedi were like in their heyday. This is what it looks like when two Jedi like at the peak of their powers are fighting a Sith at the peak of his powers, and like this is what combat looks like for Jedi back in the day.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's much more like acrobatic and sort of balletic than
not just farm boy with a laser sword, but like
not just farm boy with a laser sword, not just like two old men like sort of swinging at each other slowly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, lightsaber battles are very different in the prequels, and I think it. There's just so much that this movie adds to Star Wars in terms of developing the canon and building out like this is what this all means. This is what the origins of these things were. I know that there are definitely aspects of this movie and of the sort of explanation of canon and things like that some people disagree with. I don't like you know, the midichlorians thing has been an argument for a long time. Or just like I know some people were like, found it weird that that's the way that Jedi dress. You know, is being like in sort of those robes and like kind of like brown cloak and things. Like I think some people were like, I assumed that that's the way Obi-Wan dressed in the first movie because he was in hiding and that's how people in the desert dress, and not because that's how Jedi dress.
Yeah.
You know, I personally don't mind those things. I think they, you know, it's a valid interpretation of things, but I think, you know, I don't have a problem with them having taken this creative choice in those areas. Yeah, and then music.
Oh my gosh!
Like, gosh dang, John Williams. Like, I mean, obviously the original trilogy has plenty of amazing themes in it, but I think with the prequels, John Williams was just able to go completely ham with it.
Yeah,
and he just went like bombastic and operatic, and like, you know, we get Duel of the Fates. We get like Qui-Gon's funeral music with like sort of funeral dirge and the choir, and it's beautiful. And then we get like in Attack of the Clones, we get you know, the sort of lovers theme, like Anakin and Padme's
the theme
love
song
theme.
of my childhood was that love theme.
Yeah.
Just like
and the clones theme. The March of the Republic,
sort of march.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then we get like and then of course like, man, there's just so much good music.
And don't even start episode 3.
And I feel like,
oh man,
yeah, I know, freaking so good. Yeah, so Phantom Menace gets a bad rap and has done so much to add to the Star Wars universe, and is so visually gorgeous and unique, and has amazing sound effects and amazing music. Some of the best music in any Star Wars movie, I think, is in these movies.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And yeah, Phantom Menace, good movie.
Good movie.
Good movie.
Love it.
All right. Any closing thoughts from anybody before we dip out?
No, I've really enjoyed having my wife join us. This has been great.
Yeah, I added so
that's
much.
been great.
I added so much to this universe.
You did.
By being here
You
today.
do. You add so much to our universe, Sarah.
Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks for being our very first guest.
Yeah, my first
honored.
un-expert.
Yes.
Yeah. Indeed. We actually got our first voicemail this week, and it's from our dad. So, our dad had some comments to say, so here we are.
Hey there, big fan, first time caller. So if the T6 is the Camry of Star Wars, what is the Naboo Starfighter, which is also, I believe, the same one in The Mandalorian now? One thing that comes to mind is the World War II era P-38 Lightning. So anyway, what would you consider it today in today's fighters or sports cars or whatever, or non-Camry type? Anyway, have fun. Love the podcast. Bye.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, so the question is, if the, what was it, the C1?
The T6, which we've been calling...
I was way off.
We've been calling, I think it's going to be the C1, the Camry one, the T6 shuttle, which Ahsoka flies around in, Dooku and Qui-Gon fly around in. We've been calling it the Galactic Camry. Our dad asks...
So if that's the Galactic Camry, then what is the Naboo N1 Starfighter? What is our real-world analog for that?
So, and Dad thought it was the P-38 Lightning, which is a very uniquely styled, like, World War II plane. It's got a twin fuselage setup with a wing in the middle and then wings on the sides and two tails. And yeah, it looks really cool. Dad, I love you. I think that's just your favorite plane. And this is your favorite. I think this is also your favorite Star Wars Starfighter. Maybe, I don't know. It's one of mine. So it's awesome.
Great. I love the way.
Yeah, and the P-38 also very cool.
I think we'd have to be another car though. We have to be like, what car is this?
Sarah, you said it's like a classic Corvette.
It's like a 90s Corvette to me. Like, it has like that old sports muscle car vibe. Like, it's kind of flashy for the sake of being flashy, but like also incredibly powerful and good at what it does at the same time.
Yeah, I think it needs to, like, it has like a lot of like the Naboo stuff has kind of like a mid-century vibe to it, like mid-century modern, kind of like the sleekness and like kind of like the curvature. More pointed, yeah. So with that in mind, it's got to be something like that. So either like, I don't know, like an old Cadillac from that era, or the Batmobile from Batman the Animated Series.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is all like mid-century and like
also pointy.
And pointy, yeah. So
you can't say one fictional vehicle is another fictional vehicle. We're talking about real world analogs.
Jack, this podcast was my idea. I can say whatever I want.
Dang it. Right.
But I did say like a 50s like big old boat of a car. Like, I think.
Cool. Yeah, well, I will take your word for it because I don't know enough about cars to answer
cool
these questions, really. But, yeah. So, keeping that in mind, what would Din Djarin's N1 be? Because I feel like that one's more kind of like a hot rod version of the N1 Starfighter. Do you think is there another analog for that?
Well, I think the fact that it's an old, really pretty like Starfighter that was kind of like found, fixed up, and hot rodded out. I think it's a barn find. Like there's like a whole like category of like cars that are just like these cars that like were bought, driven around a couple times, and then just like left in the garage, and then someone stumbles across it and like fixes up and restores it. And like I love watching those kind of YouTube videos, like barn find like sports cars of like 60s, 70s, and 80s like sports cars that like haven't been driven since like a couple months after they were purchased, and then just like left in a barn and then like fixed up and restored, and like that's what Din Djarin's Naboo Starfighter is. It's one of those that's been restored. It's a barn find N1 Starfighter.
That's super cool. I did not know about that. That sounds like a perfect analogy. Yeah. That's super cool.
So that's my thought.
Yeah. If you'd like to join the discussion, like our dad did this time, feel free to leave a voicemail at 512-850-6653. And that number will also be in the description of this episode and all future episodes. But yeah, feel free to leave a voicemail. Keep it like 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
Probably,
Dad, yours is perfect.
If you can.
Well done.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Dad. Yeah, this has been great. This was great getting to discuss like something big and meaty for the first time, because we've basically just been doing like short films up until this point, and now we're getting to talk about some more like the big moments in Star Wars canon and getting into the the major characters. We got our first Wilhelm scream. We got some kills. We got our first like Sith Lord. Like exciting times. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. This was great.
Yeah, I had a blast. Getting it all wrong.
We all had fun. It was great.
All right. Well, without further ado, next time we will be. I'm gonna start over. Join us next time when we'll talk about Tales of the Jedi Episode 4, The Sith Lord, which is us returning to the Dooku story in Tales of the Jedi, and takes place, I believe, like kind of during and sort of towards the tail end of the Phantom Menace. So it's like sort of concurrent to what just happened. Or like just after, something like that. So I'm excited to get back into things with that storyline. Thank you all for joining us once again, and for sticking with us through this especially long episode. I imagine all the movie episodes are going to tend to be longer.
Yeah, but there's only going to be like a dozen of those. So
that's true.
We'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll get through it. But yeah, until next time, may the Force be with you all. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you around.
See you later.
Bye.
You did it.
All right, cut the chatter. Roger, Roger.